Yeah. Welcome to the longest intro on the inner tubes. Hello, everybody. Welcome, gatekeepers. I see y'all in here having a good time already. Love it, love it, love it. I totally made that whole thing up, Scott. I'm pretty sure the Ottoman Empire were not the first people to put their feet up, but would not. It would just be glorious. So if you could we'll just pretend tonight that it's true. So I hope everybody's got their feet up. Hope you got a good seat. Hope you had a wonderful week. I missed you, missed you, missed you. It was Valentine's week, the week of love and roses. And believe me, I was up to here with roses. Guess how much a dozen red roses in my little shop in the little corner of beautiful downtown New Jersey is? Guess. Guess how much? And they were going out the door like, I lost count how many dozen I made, but I was shocked that they were this high this year. But just take $200. I got $100, $25, Travis. Yep. 200, Glenn. I'll tell you what, $125 out the door, $10 every time you touched a rose. And I guarantee everyone I made was made with love. And 41 Valentine's Days in flowers. So, I was just, they went out the door pretty, but it's wild to think about it. So there you go. And then what's really crazy is to look back at how St. Valentine's Day used to be celebrated. And it's quite different, I assure you. And I don't know how it switched around to what we have now. I mean, there's, I could go back and tell you the stories of first Valentine's and all that, and Hallmark and, poems and all the whole flower thing. But you go back far enough, there's getting whacked with animal hides and fertilities involved, and a lot of other really strange and wild rituals. And so if you're interested in that, St. Valentine's and the story of how we used to celebrate Valentine's, I tell you, look back on it and you will be shocked. So I'm sure some of you know it in here, Glenn and Ted and is Vixen here? I bet you Vixen could tell us a thing or two about the first Valentine's Day. But that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about the anatomy of a haunting. And that's something that's always got me. What do I mean by that? Here's what I mean. What it means to me. It's how can we learn about what we already know or what we're about to learn in our consciousness right now? What can we handle? How are we looking at it, right? So if you're talking about Steve and he's got how much time he's got in this and how much time I've got in this. I said on his radio show the other day, it's like, it's not that I think I know. I'm learning stuff every day. And if I'm researching something, I'm learning stuff all day long. But you're adding to, and you're putting pieces together that didn't quite fit before. You know what I mean? Or you thought they fit somewhere, but no, wow, they've multi-level means more than one thing. So to really get into it and look at the in-depth on ghosts and hauntings and what we assume to be true, as opposed to what we can learn from it, it's an amazing thing to look at it as a learning tool for if you're just trying to sort your own experiences out, or maybe you have abilities and you're trying to understand those. Well, understand hauntings and ghosts and interaction with the living, and then you bring in spirits, which is a whole nother, ball of wax and all that, everything else like spirit guides, and you start adding more and more layers to it. We can only scratch the surface, but if we can look at different cases and ones that we got to spend time on and go back and really find some of the layers, it's an amazing learning tool for somebody just getting into researching the paranormal or just getting a group together. We talked last week with a wonderful team from wait a minute, I have to do it this way, Newfoundland, because I wasn't saying it right, but if I say it like that, it sounds close. But wonderful. And we were talking to a young man who was on one of his first cases, and it was a hospital, and the cameras didn't pick it up. Nobody else saw it. He saw it. So we got to start talking about Why you? Was it just for you? Was there some kind of a connection there with an energy or a feeling or a time in your life, something you were going through that maybe that ghost or that spirit, even we don't even know if it's an earthbound, had that connection and that was just for you. So that's another way of looking at it. Next, not really next level, but next dimension or next layer. And there's so many layers. And tonight, my guest understands these layers. Um, I'll tell you what, better than a lot of people that I've met through this. And I've met some wonderful, talented, wise people with abilities and people that were seeking the same answers to questions that we all have. And Katie is one of those. Katie has appeared on multiple television shows as a consultant, Paranormal Survivor being one of them. She has been someone that has learned to use her abilities to assist the living as well as the dead. I think she handles interviews and the subject like an absolute queen. And that's me saying that. I mean, I don't throw that stuff out there. And the reason I say that is because this comes at you and it constantly beats you up. It's all on how you take the blows, because you've got the other side demanding your energy and your time and your abilities. And then you're trying to help the living, and the same living that you're helping, they're telling you that what you're saying isn't true and you're making it up. And you have to fight through that too. So it's a constant battle in any which way you look at it. And she handles it like an absolute warrior. And I love her for it. Let's get her on the show. Miss Katie Turner. Hi, baby.
How are you, darling?
Good, good, good. I'm glad you didn't fall asleep during that intro.
Oh, I was quite relaxed. I enjoyed it.
Isn't
Thank
it
you very
lovely?
much.
Isn't it
Yeah,
lovely? I have my hot tea. Do you have your beverage? Are you good? Are you
I got
comfy?
my bevy, a
Good, good,
non-alcoholic bevy. Got my bevy. I'm ready to
good.
go. I'm ready to go.
You can put a little Southern Comfort or something in there. We won't tell anybody. We
You
won't.
know what?
I guarantee you they do.
Lots of times when I'm going to group gallery sessions, people it's a social event, and so with a group of people, they say to me, we're having some drinks. Would you like some? And I'm like, I can't do that and read. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. I
yeah.
appreciate it, but
People
there's
don't
no
get it.
way that I want to mix that. Whew.
Yeah, you can't. And people don't. And that's one of the things. It's the simple little things that, we take for granted. A lot of people don't get, like, simple as explaining to them that, no, you have to, no wine, no beer, no anything. You want all
Mhm.
your faculties about it, all the things we do in the wee small hours before an event and things like that to prepare ahead, with your protection, your center, your balance, everything that you've got to do
Yeah,
to put on there so you're almost your invisible armor, let's
e-
just say. And
exactly.
and that people don't see that part, so they think, everybody else just walks in the door, everybody else just picks up the Ouija board, everybody else does this and nothing happens. No, 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 no. No, no, grasshopper, no. There's so much simple things like until Rob Guttrow came on here and told me, oh, we do all that, but we add chocolate because chocolate raises your endorphins, and anything that lifts your vibrations and helps seal that protection around you, and raise your vibration. And other people just, what? You know, and then some others would just go, wow, I get it. It's amazing. All those things help.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
it's the little things too that we got to keep going back over and over and over and go, no, it's not like the shows. We don't just walk in the door and walk through and sit down in 45 minutes. And I know you've been involved in a lot of shows, and I have a lot of friends who have as well, and tell me a lot about the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And I know, people like Amy Allen goes through, they don't realize she's there for, a week.
right.
She's, the
Exactly.
reveal behind the scene is like 9 hours,
Exactly.
the little things you don't see.
Yep.
And I believe you had a little bit, you're more of the Jack Hanna kind, where you the person in the square at the bottom that's, and I wanted to ask you this. Are you watching the show, or do they just ask you a random questions and then edit in, this fits this story? Or do you actually get to sit down and see the story? Say, I know you've been on a couple different ones, but it almost seems like edited into where you just saw what we saw. You just saw the, monster, the kid ghost come out of the closet and go blue, and then, they cut to you and you say, well, children ghosts, or, and you
Yeah.
do the thing. How's that
No.
how's that roll?
So for me, it's really important. I did not get into television for the sake of being on television. That was not
I know.
that was
I
not
know.
important to me. What was important to me was I had some stipulations when talking with the production companies, and every film and television production I've done. And there's a couple stipulations that I have. One being it has to be as truthful as possible, and I'm allowed to speak my truth. When getting into a lot of the stories that we dealt with, I kind of stipulated, okay, if I was not there, or, it wasn't part of my story, I want to know the backstory to kind of get a vibe and psychic feeling impression of what actually really happened. And from
Mhm.
there, that's when I give my truth, and that's when I kind of speak about it. It's important not to allow your physical consciousness, your brain, to come to conclusions, because oftentimes our brain wants to keep us alive, and our brain has that fear
Yep.
instinct that kind of goes, no, it could have been the worst case scenario. That's not always the case, right?
Right.
So I like to sit with it and understand the cases that we're dealing with, so that I feel more grounded going into it. I mean, when you're sitting there in a haunted house and you're explaining these things, people don't see when the camera shut off that things are clanking, things are moving, and you're vulnerable. You're sitting in that space. So whether you're filming or off camera, you have to protect yourself. And it's
Uh-huh.
important walking into that location, knowing what I'm walking into.
Mhm.
Um, if I was asked to investigate the location or give my psychic impression, then I ask for no information before. I want to be able to give my purest intent and what I'm seeing, feeling, sensing. But if it was just, sit down, we're going to ask you some questions. I like a list of questions so I understand what I'm getting into.
Mhm. Mhm.
But they also have to be prepared to
Mm.
understand that I'm going to answer it the way I see it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't do script. That's
Mhm.
not for me. And I've never been asked that. Just for the record, I've never, every television production I've ever been a part of, they've
Mhm.
all said to me, like, we want to keep it real. We want to
Mhm.
keep it as authentic as possible. So I'm very proud of that, because I'm not somebody that wants to sell out.
Right, right, right. And you can tell, we know so many people in the biz, or your para celebrities, that you can see it happen throughout a long run of
Yep.
seasons where it's like, okay, now we got the cars, we got the house, we got to keep it up, we got to keep it, and it happens
Right.
to all of us. Name your genre, name your, whatever corporate,
Right.
so that's part of it. But like Jack is the same way. I mean, just Bill Bean, same way. All of the people that I've known, because here's the thing: we all got to gravitate together because we're like the people in the stand. Some of us went to the cornfield, some of us went to Las Vegas. It's just, and those in
Right.
the cornfield, we all kind of get each other. We might have go off and splinter in this direction or this interest or that pathway, whatever. But the truth and the facts remain the same. That's why we all in somewhere along the line we are core centered. Okay, there are ghosts, there are whatever, and then you have to people that would exploit anything
Right.
and going in that direction. It doesn't matter what it is, and somebody will have one thing and just like say to the exploitation of a massive horrid murder happened, and instead of just making it like a historic thing and going through and treating it, you're selling keychains with axes on them and stuff, and people are going in and in and in and out and in and out, and that bothers you as much as it bothers me, as it would bother Amy, as it would bother Kim Russo, as it would bother Echo Bodine, and they keep the
Right.
names rolling because these are people that of like-minded, so I get a lot of that. I wanted everybody to know too, that that's the truth. When they're watching something like that and they see a season or something, their show that you were on, that's how you felt about it. And I've never heard you, like I said, say anything that was, wackadoo crazy, you know it's you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying, though, because there are people who do. There
Yes.
are people who get on major radio shows and say like some, and this is going to upset somebody, but they say some really irresponsible things.
Yeah.
One of them being all suicides are stuck. I heard that and I went slap crazy. What a horrible, people are out there grieving. You don't know what people. You don't know who's listening. You don't. Another example. I'm sitting in a seminar and the guy in front of me is, I can feel sitting around me that, how you block yourself in a crowd, but you still get strong things still come through.
Right.
And behind me, I'm totally picking up that this girl, and I'm little words she's saying and the things I'm picking up, I'm able to piece together that she saw somebody she loved. I think it was her grandmother. And this was her experience that sparked her interest, that got her to drag her boyfriend to a Paracon where she's all excited and he's like, yeah, 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 but he's listening. That was the situation. And this doofus gets up on the thing and tells him that all ghosts are demons, and your loved ones don't ever come to meet you. And, the spiel. And
Yeah,
you can feel her just melting, Katie, So, and I mean, they left in a whole, these are life, how would you put it? They're life affecting
absolutely.
issues
Yeah.
that are
I
serious.
I think, for people in television, production companies, now we have to remember, number one, the production companies, that I've worked with in the past, and they were all wonderful production
Mm,
companies, but they're not paranormal people. They're there
true,
to
true.
record content, and they're there for, I don't like to say entertainment purposes, but it's their job isn't a paranormal investigator. They carry a camera to record what's being shown.
So true.
And so they don't understand the dynamic of some of these locations that we're going to. So their first immediate kind of thing is they want to capture the good evidence. They want to capture this stuff. Um, Having
I'm,
said that, I
I'm
think
blowing you
that
kisses too, Katie. I didn't want to throw you off. I'm blowing kisses to people coming in. I'm sorry.
that's okay. That's okay.
Kisses,
Um,
kisses, everybody. Welcome
yeah,
in, everybody.
welcome. Thanks for having me.
They're having such a good
Um,
time.
Yeah, I think that it's our responsibility as professionals to, I don't want to say disclaim, but I think it's important to see both sides of the spectrum. Yes, in fact, it can be demonic, malevolent, negative, but it also can be good. And
Mm,
unfortunately, Hollywood really wants to portray that scare factor because
mm.
that's what, you
Sells,
know,
baby.
gets people
It
coming back.
breeds, it leads. Same thing that's always, honey. From every newspaper article headline, journalists out there from, far back as we've got film to look at, the cub reporter on the street,
Yeah.
trying to race for that headline. It's the same thing. Humans really haven't changed. We've looked at that all the way back to, what was scaring us 100 years ago. Same
Right.
stuff. Same
Yeah.
things, same stuff going on the street, same, backdoor sultry things that people were hiding and, slapping, tickle, giggling about and writing to
Hmm.
each other about. They were scared of the same things that, all the same type of stuff, just different um, colors, I guess. You know what I mean? As far as
Yeah.
flavors and things going on and world events and stuff. But people are the same. Um, and what's happened to us is, of course, that escalation of getting desensitized to everything. That's a natural effect of like, more, give me more, better, faster, harder, more, where it's got to be more scary. So I talked to Jack Kenna about this, and he's the one. If you're not familiar with Jack, he's in all these other shows. So I know you probably know who I mean.
So Jack
And
and I have actually worked together
oh, he's
on Paranormal
fantastic.
Survivor.
And say that's what, yeah. So, and he's the same. He says, I don't mind the demon breathing down the neck of the person brushing her teeth in the mirror. It adds a little flavor. And I'm like, yeah, Jack, I understand that. I get it. And he doesn't mind. I mean, he's got fake Jack, we call him, that plays him in a lot of the shows. He gets fake Jack got thrown down the hall. Did you actually fly down the hall? He goes, I got shoved. It's okay. Let him fly. Jack just lets all that go, but he's sincere in what he's saying in his corner,
Yeah.
in his time to speak. And they're, but again, they've had to add two things. That jump scare isn't working. And you could argue also with, scripts and movies and things like that, and going back in time, and it was the slow burn. It was your own imagination, the thought of the thing under the bed, not actually showing the thing under the bed, kind of deal.
Yeah.
The writers are just giving up, but I think it's a faster society. They want that story to go faster. They don't really let it breathe, such as a lot of the shows where you hail from in Canada. They really have that feel, Katie. Like your gosh, I can't remember because they've changed the show name so many times, because they'll sell it in a group and then they'll flip the names. If you notice that,
Yep.
and you'll still see that little maple leaf but the name has changed. But some of those were just as good as, like, say, how Unsolved Mysteries used to tell a tale. Are you familiar with that? Or Sightings,
Oh, yeah.
the way they would tell the story and let it breathe, and it would be, the ghost in the well or on the bridge or whatever, but you'd get a little history, you'd get a little, but we've escalated to this every time a board creaks, it's a demon thing. What's next?
You know
Just
what?
spontaneous combustion across, I don't know. Where are we
Well,
going?
it's funny that you talk about spontaneous combustion because in the 90s, that was like a big thing. Like
Was.
people were,
Yeah.
that was kind of like the days of unsolved mysteries and the days of that kind of investigative type of reporting that people were doing, and then it fell off the map. And
Mhm.
I think that that's something that should be kind of re-investigated. We should get you don't hear of stories like that, in fact, but they're still happening.
They are.
And I also feel too that it's really important that uh, we look at both sides of the spectrum. That whether both sides of the border, both sides of the spectrum, and I think in today's television, as far as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are taking a change now. There is a shift happening in the paranormal world in terms of television. I think people are, maybe I'm generalizing, but I think people are getting complacent with the same style TV show with different names.
Mhm.
It's the same thing, and I think we need to refresh it. I think we need to get back into the investigative aspect of things. Yes, the entertainment people wanna see ghosts, but they have to understand that that's not what happens every time you investigate.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
sometimes investigations take hours, and sometimes they take days, and sometimes they take weeks to come to a conclusion. It
Sure.
doesn't
Yeah,
happen
or
in
longer.
30 minutes or an hour.
Yeah.
And so I think that we really need to get back into it. There's a couple series is that covered 72 hours where a couple members had gone into a home for 72 hours, and I liked that idea because it gave a
Mhm.
little bit more of um a closer look at how things are done. And then there was
Mhm.
another series that was 28 Days Haunted. A good friend of mine, Jeremy, he was on the show, and he actually suffered heart issues because of
I
it, but
bet.
it
Oh,
really
geez.
portrayed what was really happening.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important. I think that getting back to the bulk and the essence, the bones of the investigation and the bones of what we're finding is where we need to be. I think it's going to go in that
Absolutely.
direction.
Absolutely, and I love that. I love that. While you're talking, I've got all these, like, pop, 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 pinpoints in what you're saying, because I've said on this show multiple times, in this amount of time now, I'm 62. And when I mean, I can go back to clear memory of things happening, clear memory. I'm sure
Mhm,
they happened before, but, was that really grandpa looking at me in the crib? I couldn't tell you. You do get flashes of memory,
mhm,
but solid memory of, like, yeah, that was something, and I
exactly.
remember it clearly. And then, I mean, 10 years old going into the school library going, I need the true stuff. Where's the occult section? I need, and literally looking up, and we had encyclopedias and things like this. And
Mhm.
my family lived in a haunted house, didn't want to talk about it because dad was nuts and didn't want to. That's crazy talk. And you didn't speak, you know.
Yeah.
So, so it took a while, but I consider that research. And if you're reading Hans Holzer at 12, and you're just devouring this and trying to understand Ethel Myers and Sybil Leek and,
Mhm.
the tactics of going in, and
Excuse me.
his idea of, I've never been afraid of a ghost. They're only people in need of help. That's Hans Hosler. That's where I got lucky because I hooked into that. But at the same time, Katie, I've got The Exorcist is coming out. You know what I
Mhm,
mean? These things,
mhm.
Rosemary's Baby, Amityville Horror. I remember the first when I got the book, I wouldn't sleep with it in the bedroom. I had to put it outside the bedroom door.
No
Can you
doubt.
imagine? Can you imagine? Can you imagine my aunt coming out of her bedroom and walking past, seeing Amityville Horror because they take the dust cover off, so it's just the black book with the gold bleeding letters
Yeah.
laying outside the bedroom door. That must have been something. She never said a word. But, really, I consider that research. Tell me what's going on. What am I seeing? So
Mhm,
now you have people, coming up and all gathering in, lucky enough to maybe get into a group, bringing their abilities, their interests, their individual research and data, to the group. My main thing is to say, listen, if you're just starting out, the number one thing need to know is what you just said. You got to bring it all. You got to consider it all. You've got to have your tech person. You've got to have your people to understand, why am I getting that scratching sound? Is that something electronic? Is that something this, or is it something else? Those kind of things. I can't do that. But when they first started out with ghost hunters, think about how long that ran. 12, 13 years. I think it's still
Yep,
going, tell you the
it is.
truth, but
Yep.
on that one run. And I was reading their books before they really were a great team, taps, plumbers, and the stick, right? But they
Mhm.
really were doing things, and they learned some hard lessons. If you read their books, you really saw what they went through. Very sincere going in. But I think they had them do everything with, take all the feeling out of it, just the science.
Yep.
Paranormal, supernatural, take all the woo woo out.
Mhm.
And that went for a while, and then it was debunk, 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 debunk. Not that that's not important. But if you don't have somebody like Katie or somebody with abilities to come in here and help you sort what you just got on tape and sort what this thing really is, that's not a little girl coming down the stairs. You have to understand. Nothing, everything is what it appears. And again, all the multiple things that we can bring up, time slips, um, it's just multiple things, layers, bleeding into each other, different dimensions bleeding into each other, just stone tape theory, residual.
Mhm.
You had a fantastic one. I just popped into my head. The one about the fence, was it like time slip, you think? Do you remember you were a farm and there was a fence, you were going through the field or so? Was that and yeah, I think you thought it was a time slip. Is that you? No?
I'm trying to think. There has been instances where we definitely thought it was a time slip. There was instances where there was a scenario we were actually traveling to an investigation, and we were traveling down a road that we had traveled many times before, and there's kind of a landmark there. Um, it was a plane as a how would you call it, monument, like it had been cemented in there. Okay, and
Mhm.
one of my investigators and I, she's sitting in the passenger seat, I'm driving along, we're having this conversation, and we both, view the monument as we drive by. Well, about 30 seconds later to a minute later, we view it again. And there was no turning in circles. There was no, and we both kind of stopped and looked at each other and said, "Did you see that? Like, did that just actually happen?"
Mhm.
And it happened. It absolutely happened. So
Mhm.
there are definitely time slips. There are
Mhm.
most definitely time slips. I think I recollect what you were talking about. When I was a kid, I
Mhm.
was, fixing fences. I grew up on a farm, for those of you
I
that
knew there was
don't
a
know.
fence. I knew there was a fence. Go ahead.
Yeah, and, I was fixing fences. I was out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the bush and fields, and I bent down, and as I went to stand up, it was the middle of June or July, it was the middle of the summer, and when I stood up, I saw these 2 children in period time clothing, and they were r throwing leaves up and playing in the leaves and running under them and playing, and then they had turned and looked at me and were scared that, what did they see?
Yeah.
And then they turned around and vanished. Well, there was no leaves because it was the middle of summer, but it was a
Mhm.
fall setting, and there was that type of a time slip. So, yeah,
Mhm.
there's been a few experiences that I've had.
Right, and then there's the famous ones of, the Versailles and, it's just so many different ones, and I think in some ways we've lost some of those because people didn't realize what they were
Mhm.
seeing. Do you see what I mean? And I throw people off sometimes. I go, what if you're in your home and you've got like a staircase and you're hearing footsteps down the how do you know you're not haunting yourself? What if
Exactly.
you're not in some kind of a, you see what I mean? You can't sort that, and I use this word 'cause I'm watching a lot of really, cool English, stuff lately, so I pick it up, and I apologize, but
Sure.
it fits. So, you can't sort that with a a recording, say an
Right.
EVP. You may be able to distinguish what you're picking up. Say, I'm picking up hard-soled shoes on a wood, whatever. Sound is definitely something can be distinguished, very much shown in that, famous, oh gosh, if you don't know, this was amazing. Are you familiar with, Richard Sennett? He's out of, he's name sounds kinda sorta familiar though, huh?
Yeah.
He was the guy in the square on the TV when was it? Sightings? I think it was
Yes,
Sightings.
I know what you're talking about. Sightings. Great show back in the 90s.
This was like, oh my gosh, if I wasn't this close to the zenith, cross-legged on the floor, getting yelled at, "You're gonna need glasses," but mom, it's sightings, I'm like,
Yep.
you know. So Richard Sennett, and I got to speak to him. It's just an honor, and I'm going to have him back on the show again because it's just all that knowledge, right?
Wow. Yes, I
So,
know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
oh my gosh, the story is he's up there in I want to say Massachusetts ish, and so he's the guy in town that knows the paranormal. He's your go-to. So it's getting Halloween, and little news crew do a cute story. Go get a story. We're going to go to the Whaley house. Here's the town expert. Go talk to him. So she goes in, cub reporter, goes in, talks to Richard Sennett. Richard Sennett says, "Hey, Whaley House, you pick up a lot of EVPs of things like music boxes that aren't there, piano playing, piano's not there, those kind of things. If you really want an extra boost, keep a recorder on you." So she's got the old push two buttons down and one to record. That's how old this is, cassette. And she's got that hanging on her shoulder, and she's still doing her interviews. She's going through the Whaley House, and the nice lady's taking her through. He says, keep it on through the whole thing. You don't know what you're going to pick up. So luckily, she's got access to some sound people and tech people at the studio. She goes in and they go through it, and they find what they think is people playing pool. It's like, was there an arcade there? Or what, were you in, was there a bar? No, no, no. This empty house, an old Victorian, lace doily kind of house. So they're analyzing it, and they pick it up. Yeah, it's billiards, but it's not matching up to billiards of today. The sound snippets that they're using, just by chance, the guy who was doing this decides he's going to go down to the local billiards shop, I guess, talk to an expert there. And the guy says, wait a minute. Back in the day and such a date, they stopped using ivory and went to this combo that all the balls are made from after that. So that's a different sound. He says, do you have some? Yeah, let's record it. Matched perfect.
How amazing is that?
So she goes back to the house, Katie. This is what we're talking about finishing a story through, because you can't get this in one day. You have to
Right.
research. This is just like anything, true crime or whatever. So she goes back. Now you got more people involved because everybody wants to know what the heck's going on. And Richard Sennett's involved, and he's, wants to know what the heck's going on. They all go back to the house, and the lady tells them, oh, but wait a minute. The family who owned the house, very well-to-do, older son, really socialite of the day, as a son, and the tuxedos and the black tie events in the house, that kind of
The
thing.
ton.
He had a gentleman's club. Guess what they did for fun? With ivory balls, baby.
Good Lord. How cool is that? How cool is that?
Yeah.
That's the validating stuff that you want to get, right? That's the validating stuff. That's the golden stuff. It's not so much the evidence you're capturing, it's being able to correlate it and put it all together.
Took a team to sort that, and I've heard so many, stories that were just not going to play out unless somebody did that. The bunk bed thing. You heard about the bunk bed thing in the 70s and the 80s. I'm sure you have. And that was a factory where people actually putting stuff on these bunk beds. They saw the symbols up underneath and everything else. And I mean, houses were catching on fire. People were getting, it was crazy. And we say stuff like this and people go, chocolate. I don't need to eat chocolate. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm going in there. I ain't afraid of no ghosts. Honey, you don't know what you're doing.
Right. There's a couple of choice locations that I can send those people that aren't afraid of nothing into. Let me tell you.
Oh gosh, Katie, the case of I try to tell people, listen, to some old old wives' tales or old sayings or whatever. Don't put your shoes on the table. Don't put your whatever, those kind of things. Don't walk under a ladder. Well, there's probably reason for that. You get paint dropped on your head or something. So anyway, there are truths to these things, and when people say don't speak ill of the dead, there's a reason. And I've got a ton of stories, and I know you do too, of people cursing themselves and attaching people to them, or going to investigations. Like this one couple goes to investigation. They were just so tough. And they're going in and they're kicking in, the gate of the a chain link fence and just like, you talk to me, this kind of mess, at a place where a serial killer had buried about 28 bodies and they're confronting the serial killer. Guess what happened? Because
Lord.
that son of a gun's, earthbound, walking around just looking for something to get his dirty little deeds into.
Yep.
And he did. And about killed one of them. And nobody could figure out what was going on. Slow drain.
Excuse me.
It's not a game. It's not a game. So, eat the chocolate, do the prayers, put the stuff, and for the love of God, don't take the feeling out of an investigation, because you're going to need those people with abilities. And I
Yep.
know you've got some stories where you've gone into a haunting or a case, and if you just made a snap decision on the first few minutes, or gone on what people told you prior, which is why you don't like to be told, you know,
Exactly.
it might have gone a completely different direction. Do you want to
Uh,
talk about that? I've got your
yeah.
pictures. Is that a good
So
time
I've
to
got.
bring them up?
I always have a case about. Do you want? Is this the photo you want to talk about? The specific
Is
case?
this sure? Is that cool? Is it a
Yeah,
good time for
absolutely.
that?
So
Because
I've shown
that
this.
goes with the whole thing, the little video that I have in one of our favorite stories.
Yeah.
It comes out of Canada, a wonderful paranormal show. I highly recommend. It's on reruns now. But Ghostly Encounters, love the way they did their whole format and the way
Yep.
they told the story and everything else. And so I've got a little snippet of that as a perfect case for this, but I'd love to hear about this one first.
Yeah. So I was called by a woman who thought that she had a demonic entity, and she was scared to death. She lived alone in a house, little 1.5 story home in a small rural village, and she had ended up, feeling scratched and having the typical symptoms, right? And so she had had a priest in to bless and all of that stuff. And so she was continuing to feel this stuff, and so she had contacted us, asked us to come in to find out what it was. So we walk into the house, and immediately I hear a cat. And I had said to the woman, "Do you own a cat?" And she said, "No, I don't know. There's no cat here." Okay. So we continue the investigation. I do my psychic walkthrough. I'm picking up cat, cat, cat. Get the video recorders going, get the audio going. Everything's going. Had gone through the whole house. We had come back down the house and come back down the stairs from the second floor. And I turned into the living room and I snapped a photo of the stairs. And one of my investigators was sitting on the stairs. And in that photo was the image of a cat. And the woman had thought for sure that there was something evil. There's the image. Y'all can see it. So the only editing I've done in this photo was I added a red circle so you can see it, and I blew it up and put it in the corner so you can see it. Now, just for the record, this photo was taken with a cell phone camera. There were multiple images, and this was the only image that showed up. And I think it's a pretty class A. I'm
Yes.
pretty proud of this photo because I think there's, how do you deny something like this? How do you debunk something like this? But all the while, when taking this photo, we also got audio on the video camera and in our audio recorders, and we could actually hear the cat.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
after we had gotten the image, we had gone back to the woman and we had said, like, "You have a cat." And she said, "Well, actually, my cat died, a little while ago." And we said, "Well, how long have you had the activity?" And she said, she was kind of shocked, and she said, "Around when the cat died." And that's all it was. It was nothing demonic. It was nothing malevolent. It was literally the spirit of a cat climbing up on her at night to sleep, or jumping
Yes.
up on her on the couch, or whatever, whenever it could, moving things, and it was the cat. And
Look
so
at
there's
this.
that photo.
There's that photo. Well, it's either a cat, Katie, or a really unfortunately unfortunate looking child of
Right?
some sort. But that's a cat. As a cat person, I can vouch that looks like a cat. How about you guys chat? Now, see, that's it. That is a perfect case for don't jump to conclusions. Sort it. You need the whole team to do it. You had it, you had stuff over here, you caught this over here. I was in a only paranormal people and really crazy people say things like I'm about to say. I was in a really dark cellar one night, and with a couple of, I've got an ex Navy soldier with me and an ex Army guy, and I'm ex Army, and we're there trying to help some soldiers from Civil War, basically, that are all kind of cornered in this cellar.
Mhm.
And so we did some things like trying to raise the vibration and just, sometimes talking won't work, vibration will. So some music of the time that's not confrontational. So, like, you wouldn't play Whistle Dixie over in the, if they're Yankees. So you got to find something that's appealing
Yeah.
to both. So, and at the time, I'm standing there, and all these soldiers were trying to tell them, look, we understand, we're soldiers too, and we're like, read our intent. We're trying to get them to understand where we're coming from.
Yeah.
And we're playing this music. And at the same time, I'm feeling what's in front of me, and I'm feeling them get closer. And I'm feeling like as they're getting closer, I'm getting the different energies you get off of them. You know what I'm saying? And the same time, I forget what it's called. Is it Fleur?
Yep.
A
Yep.
chat, the one where they have the stick figures that dance?
Oh, that's an S. Well, I mean, it's made from an SLS camera. I actually
Yes,
reverse engineered and made my own because I wasn't going to spend the money on buying
you
an
go,
SLS
girl.
camera. But for everybody understanding, it's an SLS.
There you go. So there was somebody down there holding that, getting that, and I'm feeling what's showing up, and they're dancing. They're coming up like almost like the jig kind of thing to the
Hmm.
music. And we felt like that vibration lift.
Yep.
And at the same time, he's getting a man over sitting in the chair in the corner, and he's got a laptop, and he's doing the one where the words actually come up and say it, and it's spelled out, like hello or dance or whatever. And everything is matching up, is my whole point. Everything
Hmm.
is matching up at the same time, but each individual had no idea really what was going on with each individual, and we came together after. That is just one of the most amazing things when something like that can happen. And
Absolutely.
I think you need all the parts to get that to go. So the cat one was absolutely amazing. You have another one that on similar terms would have been misunderstood. The other pictures that you sent, is
Yeah.
that, am I correct in that? Let me see if I can get
Yep.
that one up. Do you want to tell that one?
Sure.
Is this
So
the right first one? Now, I've seen this before, so I'm going to stay out of it. Is Katie's going to ask you questions? I'm not going to say anything. That's hard for me, but I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to cheat. Go ahead, babe.
okay. So this is another pretty compelling image that we took. Again, the only editing we did was the circle, so people can see it. Now I did send you a blown up version of this, or kind of zoomed in, I believe. But basically, we were at a very famous haunt. Nope, not that one. Another one. There you go. There's the zoomed in photo. It's a little better. And people could argue that this is smoke, or this is, dust, or this is fog. The bottom line is nobody was smoking. There was no fog, plain to see. Multiple cameras were picking it up in terms of the where it was moving when we were taking like the shots. And at the very same time we were taking this image, we also had audio recorders and video recorders going. So we were getting the communication. We had REM pods, and we had EMF meters, a couple variant brands made. And long story short, this gentleman had come through, and we had seen him multiple times. So this was a local place that we often like to go. It's a local haunt called Buck Hill Road, and it's pretty infamous in Renfrew County in Ontario, Canada. And you know what? There's an old urban legend that talks about this location that we go to, of a father looking for his long lost daughter, and he comes up the hill with a lantern, and whether it's the little girl, we have not been able to correlate any of that evidence, but we have been able to come to the understanding that there is a portal there. And we nailed it. We were able to get that. There were other images that came through that were not so clear, but I'm curious to what other people think, those images. Now, if you look, the multiple pictures that we took, and you could see the fog moving, and as quick as it came, it
Mm-hmm.
left.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty
Isn't that
cool.
amazing? Yeah. Now this is the further away,
Yeah.
and oops, wait a minute. I got the cat back again. A kitty.
Okay.
Go back. Okay, there we go.
Okay. So this one, I'm curious what everybody sees in this photo. I'm real curious. And I say that because um, that night that we went, that was probably one of the scariest times that we had investigated that location. That was again Buck Hill, same night. And leading up to this part in the investigation, we had all gotten out of the vehicle, and we leave audio recorders in the vehicle, as well as every member of the team usually carries it, as well as the ones that we lay down laying around, and all the other equipment. I mean, we've all got multiple pieces. And we had snapped a bunch of photos, and I always take them in series, click, 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 click,
Mhm.
to make sure that it's nothing like a pareidolia or matrixing effect. At the same time that photo was hit or taken, you can hear us talking of immediately we were we always kind of check the screens when after we take the images. You can hear us talking about it, and in that image, I remember hearing. There were so many EVPs that night, but at one point it said everything's going to be all right. At one point, there was the EVP awesome. There was a bunch going on, and that was taken. Now let's fast forward about 14 years later, maybe not quite, maybe 10 years later, and we hosted a local paranormal team, and they asked us, "Would you be willing to take us up to Buck Hill? We know it's your it's your haunt kind of, and we'd like to go up and experience it." Said absolutely no problem. So we take them up, we kind of show them how to go and where to go and stuff, and to kind of preface that a little bit, it's a road in the middle of nowhere, and if you guys Google it, you'll see all the evidence that other people have captured as well. But it's in the middle of nowhere on a higher hill. So we get out of the car, we're doing our investigation, and she just so happens to snap a photo, captures the same thing.
Mhm.
So how do you get a matrixing pareidolia effect, anything like that, thinking of debunking? How do you get something like that from an image?
Yeah.
Now, that night when I took that image, I also had my windshield smashed of
Oh,
unforeseen forces.
right.
Nothing fell out of the tree. It was not a cold night to crack the windshield. It wasn't an extra hot night for the air conditioner to crack the windshield. The windshield had no further problem, like prior problems. There was
Cracks in your
nothing.
windshield, guys.
Yeah,
Telling you.
it was
Yeah,
it
we
was a
say that
pretty
here all
cool
the
night.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now with this one, as well, wasn't there something that they said to you that kind of at the same exact time that fog was moving? Did you pick up an EVP with this one? Am I correct in that one?
Oh, I can't, you know what? There's so many. I'm trying to
I know.
remember.
I think I remember, and I could be remembering wrong. You said something like, you got an EVP when the fog was moving. Do you see me?
Oh, I'm here.
I'm
I'm
here.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
It
mean,
was
and
like
it's just
I'm
like,
here or I'm
here I
right
am.
here or something. Yeah.
I thought of you the other night. I know it sounds so funny, but things you remember these stories. And I remembered that story. I'm watching the new, and I recommend it if you want to watch a good flick that's out there because there's so few now. But The Invisible Man, the new Invisible Man, because it's done in a very it goes back. It's like when Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula was made, it went for the book. This is very much back in that time, so you get the history and that Victorian feel as well. And it's just well done. It's not like crazy CGI or anything like that, and there's not a motive. It's just the Invisible Man loses his cheese slides right off his cracker, Katie. So, and that's what happens when you start messing with stuff like that. And it's a nice little, it's a little
Yeah.
motto to follow and everything. But how did I bring up the Invisible Man?
That's
Oh,
funny. I'll tell
because
you,
when
I'm
he
glad that your
appeared in the
memory,
fog,
I'm glad that your memory is better than my memory. I've had to share so much evidence. I can't remember
you
which
can't.
EVP is which with.
It's so hard to go.
Telling you.
I know, and I'm the same way. But like I said, I've put these things with people because, like, if something comes up, I know who to call. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So that's why I brought it up. Was at one point in time, of course, he's naked, he's invisible, and he goes in the rain, and the rain covers him. That old think back to the old Invisible Man. That's why I mean it's like the old stuff. It's good. And then another one where there's just that old English fog across the moors, and the fog makes that shape. just for a moment, so many ghosts like that. So many, and it's what because they're using what they have around them that,
Yeah.
and I think that goes, and this is just theory and speculation, isn't it all? Um, why there's so much in the middle of the night that time, with like, I always thought about like the dew on the grass, the moisture in the air, it's not that they're not there 24/7. It's just that they appear more at
Yeah.
certain times. What's your theory on that? Do you have one?
Well,
Similar
I think
in the
there's a couple
time
things. I really think there's a couple
and
factors.
your state too. It has
Yeah.
to do with the living state as well.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think that people say, why do you investigate at night? You don't have to investigate at night. Yes, there's a cyclical thing. There are times of the years where time of the year where the veil is thinner. Okay, so I usually say October to September, October, November, and then April, March, or March, April, May, that type of an area. But when it comes to investigating, I find that there's less cross contamination. It's quieter at night. When I'm going into a location and it's pitch black, I'm not hearing, your normal vehicles unless you're in a busy city. But for the most part, you're not getting cross contamination with lights shining through the windows or certain things going on. You can go black and rely more on your equipment. But I do feel that, in a case like this, it wasn't necessarily even that it happened at night or it was the time of the evening, but it was the fact of the matter that we were using the evening, the nighttime, to be able to for the camera to pick this up. And I'm assuming, and we have pictured some fog during the day, but I think it was easier for us to capture this at night. I don't. I think if you go to Buck Hill any time of the day, you're going to get something. But it's easier on the equipment when
Mm-hmm.
you're using that stuff at night.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Makes perfect sense. And there seems to be a feel too, and it's also, um, being able to sit there in the dark. It's almost like a hearkening to
Excuse
scrying,
me.
or like a scrying kind of thing, or scrying chamber. Like where you go in, it's a dark room, and there's just one candle, and it's just, I'm not doing this, by the way. I don't listen. When you're at this point, you just like, I don't antagonize.
No,
It's like
exactly.
if they find me, fine. We'll deal with it. But
Yeah.
come as one at a time, if at all possible. But you don't go around investigating your own house, and you don't go stirring up mess, and you don't start playing. You agree, do you not? I mean,
Absolutely.
don't do this.
You
Don't
know what
try this at home.
right? You know what I look at it? I look at it like this. A lighthouse sits on the edge of an island or an edge of a landmass,
Mhm,
and it doesn't chase the ships. The ships come to it. In other words, it's attracted to the light. So
mhm,
you don't have to go chasing it. It's going to come to you, but you have to be in the right frame of mind in order for that to be seen, right?
yes,
So if you sit still in your energy, you're going to receive just as much. If you're going to be, provoking these things, it's not going to work in your favor.
mhm,
In fact, I've seen it actually have the opposite effect where less activity happens.
mhm.
Um,
A
I feel
lot.
that, yeah,
Yeah, a
and I
lot, a
feel that
lot.
through all of this stuff, all of the experiences that I've had, going in with respect and patience is going to get you better results. Provoking, attitude, disrespect, it does nothing. They're not monkeys. It's not a
Mhm.
circus.
They're
You can't
people. They're
snap
people.
your
Like
fingers.
Han said, they're just people in need of help, and sometimes they don't realize they're in need of
Yeah.
help, and a lot of times they don't want your help.
No,
They don't
exactly.
understand what they're doing. It's very much like I'm not a big fan of the movie The Others, but if you've seen it, you know kind of probably where I'm going here. It was from
Mhm.
the perspective of the ghost, and you don't
Yep.
really realize it to the end. That her keys made me absolutely insane. I was having rabies. I just but I was trying to stick in there. You don't realize at first that she's Nicole Kidman's character, whatever her name was seeing her husband, and her husband's trying to coming in the fog, and he's
Mhm.
showing up, and he's trying to talk to her and kind of coaxed her over.
Mhm.
We see this all the time. They could be in the same darn house, same darn room. The wife's coming to get the husband. He's in the
Right.
kitchen in a total different spot in his own vantage point, his own self-induced box, whatever. And she's like, he's not, his consciousness isn't ready to pick up what she's putting down, basically. And then you've got a medium there or a group that's picking up on this, and they're going, listen, your wife's right here. We
Yeah.
need to catch, what kind of therapy do we need to do? We need to talk it out. if you can do that, or trying to coax them, just ease their feelings. That's an easy one. Had a friend who very much like you were when you were talking in the beginning about going on the shows and stuff. Her experience much different, and it all depends on the production company you get. So we're not broad brushing here.
No.
It's just as different as every storefront you walk into. So her experience was her husband and herself. She has abilities. I think he has them too. Um, you know how men are reluctant. Oh, not me, but he's picking up on all this. So anyway, he's the photographer. He's the one with the old cameras. Like the almost Super 8 kind of thing. So they started real young, and she goes into this field. Had no idea it was an old cornfield, just been turned. And she's walking through, and she got a feeling. They got out of the car. They went out there. He got his camera going. She's talking, and she's dousing rods like me. I do dowsing rods just to kind of validate what I'm already feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So she's doing this, bumps into a bunch of ghosts that are, she said it was like 14. Some were aware of each other. She's getting it. You know the deal. And they go back, they go back, they go back. And she's trying to figure this out. About the third time, she's picking up, she thinks there was an airplane crash here because she's hearing things, in her mind, like,
Mm-hmm.
did anybody get hurt? Did we make it? Things like this from the pilot. Okay, as she finds out over time. So anyway, she's sorting through this. Her husband, a very good researcher, her husband, they find out, yes, indeed, there was a small aircraft that had crashed there in the 70s. And this whole group, I bring this up to tell that they're all standing together, and only 4 of them were aware of the others. This is something that I know we bump into in cases. And for some, again, I say that because I don't want to say flippant people that go in and think that they can just kick in the door and start yelling, "Hey, if you're here, give me a thing." How would a living human being react to that? Okay.
Exactly.
And then you add all of this paranormal soup together,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got to sit there and pick out the peas and the carrots and what might be meat, whatever. You have to sort this, and it takes time. They go on the show, and they quit doing the shows because they're going and they're telling these incredible stories like that one. And they're like, we want more. We want more. Do you have any, this, or, an orb is nothing, we need more of this. Can you give us more? Can you elaborate? Can you say this happened? And they just quit because they had a bad experience in the shows. But how many
Yeah.
people get through?
Yeah.
So we have to sit here and do these shows to try to get people. Listen, I care about people with abilities, young kids coming up. I want them to try to have the right paths, or at least a choice of
Right.
this is going to hurt me, and I'm going to go down this dark hole, or I can go here and maybe at some time be doing this and trying to help people,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I think that's what we're here for, Katie, right?
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. I can't tell you the amount of cases that I have worked that the entities didn't even know they were dead.
Yeah, yeah.
Having that conversation.
I'm mad at you for telling them that.
Yeah, they're like, I'm dead. I've gotten many EVPs. I'm dead. They had no idea. And
Mhm.
your heart breaks for them because you're not trying to burst their bubble, but you're also trying to open a door for them to make the choice. I think it's a pretty ignorant assumption for somebody to say, you need to cross and go to the other side now, or,
Mhm.
you shouldn't be here.
Mhm.
You need to cross over. That is up to the spiritual choice. But if you
Yep.
can make them conscious of that choice and say, look, there's other options for you.
Let me look
A lot
this
of
with you.
times, yeah, they
Yeah.
wanna take it. They
Yeah.
absolutely wanna take it. We did an investigation actually at a cemetery, and we did it for field work. We did it for the purposes of just honing our skills. It was a little quiet, there wasn't a lot of cases going on, so we thought, "Let's kind of work as a team, we'll go to this cemetery." It had been, mentioned that it was haunted, and let's work with it. So we arrive, and, it was a very hilly, cemetery. And I look over to my left, and I see this kid, and he had his head kinda over, he was looking down. He had hand on his, knees, and he was crying. And it
Oh.
took me a second to realize that wasn't a person, that was a
Mhm.
spirit.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, I heard him speak to me, "I wanna go home, I wanna go home, I wanna go home." And I had to say to him, "What home do you wanna go to?" He said, "What do you mean, what home do I wanna go to?" And I said, "Well,
Right.
Are you wanting to go to your house, or are you wanting to cross to the other side? And he said, what is the other side? And I had to psychically explain to him, honey, you're dead. Do you understand that? And he said, no. And I said, why are you sitting here? He said, because I can't leave this spot. And when I
Mhm.
walked past him to kind of the right hand side of him, there was his gravestone there, but he didn't have the conscious awareness in depth to understand he was buried
Listens.
there, but he was still tied to that spot. And I said to him,
Wow.
honey,
Yeah.
you need to cross. You know, like if you or you I'll I can help you get home. If you want to get home, we'll take you home. You know, it's up to you. Like it's I'm
Free
not
will.
God.
Free
I'm not
will.
going to
Yeah.
tell you where you need to go,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I'm opening your consciousness. And as
Mhm.
soon as he knew that he could, as soon as he was like, I can cross over, I said, absolutely you can. Like,
Mhm.
it's your choice. I explained it and he left like
Mhm.
that. And
Mhm.
there was a sense of peace there. So
Mhm.
it's really about making them aware and not
Mhm.
being afraid. Another thing people forget about is when you walk into a location to investigate, um, these entities are not necessarily from your time. And so when you're
Uh-huh.
bringing all of this equipment and they have the
So true.
consciousness to see you, see the equipment, they're intimidated by it. They're afraid of it. We had a case one time where there was a few women that had passed away, and we had, a trigger shoot flashlight. They thought it was a gun.
Mm.
They thought it was a
Mhm.
gun. Are
Mhm.
you gonna
Mhm.
shoot us? And we're like, we
What's
I
that? Yeah.
out like in my outside voice, out loud, I explain, no, this is a flashlight. It's not meant to hurt you. Now I'm
Mhm.
getting it psychically, and we're also getting it through the
Mhm.
Ovilus, and we're also getting it through EVP, live EVPs. So it was
Mhm.
kind of cool to be able for myself to hear it, for the other investigators to hear it, and us to kind of put their mind at ease and relax them so that we
Mhm.
can continue communicating with them.
Absolutely. On a field in Gettysburg, need I say more? The amount you are literally surrounded by every kind of paranormal phenomenon you can imagine.
Well,
You've got them,
yeah,
but you know what I
I'm
mean?
gonna give you a little
Everything.
secret, Cisco, and you're one of the first to know.
Uh-huh.
I booked my hotel today.
Party, paranormal party. I love it. I love it. Love it. So yeah, you're right in the middle of this. And that's I always they say, where are you going? I don't know. My guides will get me there. I don't know what I'm doing. My guides will get me there. If I get involved, I'll screw it up. Just
Yep.
oh, now this is why I'm here. For this one thing, and that's fine. But you're out there and you literally every kind of paranormal thing. So you've got the ones that are stuck in a loop, you've got the residual, you've got the echoes and the death echoes, you got just everything. And you've got the intelligent ones that are still in the soldier mode that are kind of, I'm not leaving them
Yep.
aware, you know. And boy, if you can get that one and go listen,
Yeah.
now you're talking to him like a soldier. Now I'm like apologizing for wearing pants.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, I'm there. I'm like, read my intent. Understand, I'm a soldier. I know I don't look like it, and I'm the reason it's so amazing there is because if you think about this, Katie, I'm in a field where during the day, every hour, on the hour, people are coming in, all different walks of life coming in there, asking impertinent questions, doing all these things. I'm coming in. I'm going. I'm not doing any of that. The minute that the one that was paying attention clicked into that, we moved through the language barrier, all the things you're mentioning. What do they see? Think of the others. What are they seeing? Don't we can't assume anything. Every piece of equipment we had on the ground, not even touching, started going off. One, two, three, four. The
Oh,
flashlight
great.
goes on and off. The EMF meter goes all the way top, comes back down. The dowsing rods are crossing and I mean, just all they knew because every hour on the hour, people are bringing this stuff in. We wouldn't take any pictures. Like, look, we explained about it because there's that piece of my soul kind of thing that goes back, you know what I mean? To steal your soul kind of thing from Native Americans used to think they didn't like their picture taken. They were afraid of it. So you can't assume people are going to want that. And it's disrespectful to do it without permission. When you go in with something like that, you get results like this.
Yeah.
And then they're helping you with the other ones who are struggling. You know what I mean? And, if you get everybody in that light, man, you can, you know, you're not forcing anybody. You're going, look, in case you don't want to, this is all you need to do is think of that, connect into the love, think of a past, a dog, a kid, a family member, whatever that love. You're talking to soldiers that were in battle when they died. What did they last see?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
so it's incredible. All of these things need to be taken into consideration, and absolutely consider everything we're telling you about before you ever start. And then once you get in there, maybe think about it before you come out and go, look, I just talked to the murderer in the house or whatever, and they told me this and this. Well, how do you know? First
Yeah,
of all.
exactly.
Second of all, it might be the jerk that you're carrying with you that's been following you for the past 10 years because you did such and such messing with you, or any other a million
Yeah.
things, right?
Mhm.
So I know you got to get out of here soon. I've got this little video I wanted to show you. If you want to get some hot water, your tea or something, anything like that, do it. Do it in about like 8 minutes and then come back and see what you think about it. Because here's the thing. A lot of people in this chat have seen this story. This is a man's story, comes out of your area, of the wonderful paranormal shows that come out of Canada, um, the Ghostly Encounters.
Mhm.
And it's a young man. I think you need to take all that in consideration. I believe in the beginning he says he just broke up, so now he's getting a divorce. He's a young man inside of a new condo kind of thing. He starts to experience things, and it's just that normal thing of that slow buildup. But the way he handled it and the way he did it, what he went through. If you were a new paranormal group just going in and hearing what he was saying, I think that you might get the wrong idea at first, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
So, with your kind permission, I know you got to be out of here, and I'm going to stick to my word on that. But I'd love to get your idea on this. Chat. This is our lovely gentleman with the story. So if you've seen it before, go ahead and get some hot water. But I've seen this about 5-6 times. I learned something every time. So
Okay.
here we go. Here we go. And I kind of call it how it starts and how it ends. It's a beautiful story. Here we go. And I'm just going to grab some hot water. I'll be right back.
I was born in Montreal, Quebec, and I left Montreal when I was very young, around 10 or 11. Moved to Toronto, lived there till I was till I was 14. Moved to Florida and lived there about 12, 13 years. About 12 years ago, I got a job in Tucson, Arizona. So I drove from Toronto to Tucson, and I was staying in my boss's house, but he wasn't there. He was in Canada. It was a condominium townhouse, with an upstairs and a downstairs. My life at that time, I think, was pretty normal. I was, trying to, recently divorced after 5 years of marriage, so trying to find my path alone again, working and trying to make a life for myself, same like anyone else.
Be careful what you wish for. We've all heard the old adage, but how many of us have lived the results of wishing for the wrong thing? I am Lawrence Chow. Today in Ghostly Encounters, we look at the case of Brad Powell, a man carving out an ordinary life. In the midst of that, Brad will have what he thinks is a harmless, almost ordinary paranormal experience. But Brad will wish for more. And as a result, he's about to be plunged into a year-long odyssey of terror.
Classy format, I think,
Yeah. I love the fact you moved to Florida when it was cold. That makes sense.
But here's a guy going through some emotional things, right, Katie?
The second or third day, I noticed that the lights would flicker on and off. Particularly this one hallway light in the entrance to the condo. I would look back and say, oh my goodness, what the heck's going on here? TV would flicker and terrible reception, even though we had cable TV. So very
Slow
often
build up.
popping sounds and interference with the TV and stuff like that. I suspected that there might be some sort of presence in there because I was always open to that kind of thing. So I just assumed that's exactly what it was. And then as time went on, I realized that there was much more to it than faulty electrical. So I think that was really the very beginning of it trying to attract my attention as best it could. When it really began to attract my attention, I decided maybe I'll try and communicate with this entity and get it to do things to prove that this indeed was really happening.
Lesson number one, folks, don't do it unless you're well versed in paranormal.
Move the chandelier from
Absolutely
left to
true.
right or right to left.
Listen to her.
But it was so subtle and so gentle the way it would move the chandelier that I wasn't sure if I was imagining it or not. And as the communication evolved, I became stronger and stronger.
Sweetie, this so reminds me of the old Jurassic Park where Jeff Goldblum says, first comes the oohing and the eyeing, then comes the running and the screaming.
Yeah, exactly. Dun, dun, dun.
But I love this man. I so love this man. He has a great approach to the whole thing. I mean, he really had a life lesson here. You know, it's really a great story. You know, you digging it so far? You good? Do you need to go and get some hot water? Are you good?
I'm
Okay.
loving it.
I just realized, folks, you know what we have here? And I didn't do this on purpose. This is like our own little personal paranormal survivor because we have the expert right here. Don't you love that when they put that paranormal expert? And we hate that. Listen,
I hate the word expert
we hate it.
because immediately, like, there's no expert in the paranormal.
isn't.
There's people who have more experience and
Right.
can talk about their experiences. And then there's people that aren't. So I don't like if somebody, you know,
I
if
try to correct
anybody ever
them
tells
nicely.
you, and I'm talking to the audience, that they know everything about paranormal or that they are, you know, out and out experts, they've done it
Run.
all, run.
Run.
Far,
Run.
hard, long, and fast, run.
Yeah. And if they tell you that all your beliefs are crazy and that wasn't grandma sitting on your bed, listen, I tell you this, and I bet you Katie will back me on this. What was your first intent? What was your first intuition? What was the first feeling you had? Was it joy and love and just an amazing warmth? That was grandma.
Yeah.
Just saying, you know, because evil can portray certain things, but they don't get away with everything.
No.
You know what I mean? Your intent is a lot stronger. Your light and the stuff they're trying to tell you don't have anymore, that's the strongest weapon you've got.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
if
and they're
it
trying to
shows
set-
up like grandma, but you feel sick to your stomach, you have this ominous feeling, it's not grandma.
It's not grandma. It's really that simple. You can
Yeah.
feel it coming. Both. I think
Okay.
extreme love and extreme evil, both you can
Yep.
feel coming a long time before it gets there.
Yep.
Trust your feelings, baby.
And there was an empty bag on the floor.
Oh, this is beautiful.
I asked it or
weird
suggested
way.
to it, maybe if you move the plastic bag, that, you know, I can fully
Yes.
acknowledge your presence. And it did so, and the
Right.
bag started to lift up and float.
Right.
It seemed the more I communicated with this spirit, the more powerful or stronger it could manifest itself physically.
Here it
It showed
comes.
itself as a cloud, like a misty form, almost like fog, with sparks shooting out of it.
I jumped out of my couch, Katie, when I first saw this, and I first saw this like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But this is exactly how my mama showed up. Exactly how my mama showed up. And you know, that's why we do what we do, and that's why we try to keep it as accurate as possible. We try not to add or detract because we don't know what's important in the story. You know, we try to, it smelled like this, it sounded like this, and then it felt, you know, then whatever. Because when they did this and the way he described it, this is exactly that
Yep.
sparkle, and then that sparkle came together and formed. Oh, it was just
And
so
it's
validating.
all equally important. So there's not
Yes.
one more detail that's more important than the other.
Right. So, and it's so cool when you get that. That's why it makes me angry when people steal that from people,
Yeah.
and if they had thrown something else in there, messed around with it, it's not the same,
No,
The
exactly.
cloud
That's why
was
it's important.
maybe a foot and a half, 2 feet wide, maybe 4 or 5 feet high. I was fascinated by this entity, this energy. I was putting my hand in it, my fingers, to feel it and to connect with it as well. Because at this point, there was no fear. It was neat. It was cool. At that point, there was no question. There indeed was something going on in this house. Initially, when it was being nice like that, I believed it. I thought it was some kind of guardian angel or, something like that. Something that was pleasant, something that was nice and nothing to be fearful of. That night I went to sleep and had a nice sleep. And it was the next day that it became very malicious and very scary. Its ultimate goal was certainly to put the fear of God in me.
Now, that just took a hard left. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that's what happened. That's what happened.
I was thinking when I realized that there was indeed a presence in this house that, wow, this is pretty cool. Because it didn't show itself in a negative or hurtful or harmful way at all. It just seemed like a cool experience to have. And then the following day, I really knew it was there because it did everything in its power to make me very fearful. That's when this ghost started making the walls appear to be bulging in and out.
Always a good show, by the way.
I was seated sitting on the couch around 10 feet away from the wall.
When the wallpaper starts breathing, it's like, okay. Right?
And you didn't smoke
One
nothing.
wall that was bulging.
Yeah, exactly. It's incredible what they can manifest, though. It's incredible. Never seen something amazing.
And I inquired, is that you? And of course it said yes.
Now we got verbal.
It started showing these ugly, mean, evil faces on the wall. When the faces showed up, it was more like 3D actually, but they kind of moved and there were like shadows with it. But then the faces would change a little bit. They started to become very evil looking creatures, monsters, whatever you want to call them. Very freaky stuff, very scary. I remember thinking to myself, what am I going to do next with this situation I've gotten myself into? All kinds of things raced through your mind. It was horrible. There's no question in my mind that it indeed occurred. That was the beginning of an onset of total panic and fear. And the more fearful I became, the more malicious it became. It would also physically attach itself to me when I was trying to sleep.
Now we're escalating.
Oh
It
my
didn't
goodness.
feel like an actual human hand on me when I felt its presence, but I did feel a pressure that might be the equivalent in the weight or the firmness, along with goosebumps, terrible goosebumps, and I just knew it was this thing on me, and it was a very uncomfortable, quite a horrible feeling. I actually called a friend, and she told me, a couple of things like put salt around the perimeter, the inside perimeter of your house, and that helps keep them out, as well as burning sage I was recommended to do. Those
All of this without, this is just my thought. All of this without faith in the product or the item, without any of your own energy and belief in the items, and you're just like, she might as well just told them to throw a slipper at it.
Yep. So
That's
let's
my
just,
take. What do you
yeah,
think?
and let's just kind of go back and reiterate it a little bit. What was
Sure.
the first thing that he did when the light started flickering? He
Mhm.
invited it in. Invitation, consciously or subconsciously, the act of wanting to communicate with this entity was
Yes.
the invitation the entity needed to get in.
Mhm.
And this is why I try to express to people in their own home. I don't investigate my own home myself. I cleanse.
Mhm.
I've got all of this
I
stuff
agree.
is not for show. I mean, it's beautiful, but I use it on a daily basis.
Mhm.
Um, and I've got it everywhere. But
Mhm.
my point being is that you have to set a monologue, not a dialogue. And when you set
Mhm.
a dialogue, that's open-ended conversation for the entity to reply or to come into the conversation.
Mhm.
Not a good idea, people. So it's
Mhm.
important with that monologue. You're not welcome here. I do not want you here. And you have to say it with the active intent. Get out.
Mhm. And mean it.
Um,
And
the
mean it.
fact, exactly, the fact that he, with intent, and he said, I wanted to speak to him. I knew he,
Mhm.
I knew it was an entity. I asked him to do more.
Mhm.
That's a dialogue, and that's not
Mhm.
always a good idea.
And each time he's doing this, if you notice, there's this slow ramping up, and we say this all the time in cases. We said it in the famous the haunting of the Smurls and everything else. I showed you how it amps slow
Mhm.
because it's gaining energy. It's gaining energy, and there's something that also happens when they know you're paying attention and you're picking up on all the little things they do. Same is true in the spirit world, and I'm sure you'd agree with this, that once you start noticing the angel numbers, the signs and things like that, they can come faster. And same thing is true.
Synchronicities. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And with this young man, bless his heart, by the way, I think he's got a terrific attitude about it. And I can see where he's going from, because here he's, like he said, he's coming out of a divorce. Okay, now that's going to carry a lot of different emotions that you're
Low
going through.
vibration. Yep.
Very low vibration, and all of these different emotions. And
Mhm.
yes, just like she said with the lighthouse, I love that, on the island, and the ship's coming to it. It's also that beacon that's in the
Yep.
darkness, and it's not just your abilities that shine. It's, how do I put this? It's shared emotion that I think is in that energy that they recognize, which is why I
Yep.
was telling that young man, that's why you're the only one who saw it. There's a message here. What were you going through at the time?
Yep.
Maybe this was something this person was going through at the time and recognized that energy, or was there to clue you in on something. It's usually often much bigger when something happens to you like that, rather than when you're going to seek something and it happens, you
Yep.
know. But I love this guy's attitude. Where do you see this? This takes some twists.
Things didn't seem to work.
And I mean, honestly, if you walked in as a paranormal group, and let's just say, and I'm not knocking, do what you want to do, but we're just giving advice here. It's free, you know. So i- if you're going in and you're thinking it stops here, and you just now at this story, and you're talking to this young man, and you're jotting down everything he's telling us, and you're compositing a list, and you're looking around your group, and you're going, all right, I know what this is, because the walls are breathing, you got faces poking at it, and you're being held down in your bed, the pressure, and somebody's going to throw old hag syndrome in there and sleep paralysis, which really
Mhm.
throws a wrench in the gears, because you're just coming to conclusions without having come to a conclusion through research and study and conversation, right? So you would think, I know what this is, so we're going to do this. Somebody call a priest, right? At this point,
Right.
I mean, that's enough, right? I
Mhm.
mean, a lot of people jump to that. You had a case where a lady's cat passed, and the cat's
Yep.
jumping on the bed, and she thought she had a demon. We
Exactly.
got to get the ropes are flying like crazy. We got to get control of this, because at this point, 50 years in, I want to pass and come back and say we made some progress here. Yeah.
Yep.
That's
Exactly.
why we're doing this. That's why we're doing this. Poor guy.
This went on in the house for about a week, but that week was a very, very long, hard week. And I
Boy.
got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore, and I packed my bags and left.
Wait to hear this,
I
Katie.
had to quit my job. I hopped in my car, drove from Tucson to Florida.
So
I
many
felt safe
cases.
in Florida because I used to live there. When I was in the car, I could feel this spirit on me again, with the goosebumps and the pressure as well. It was
Went right
always
with
there. When I went to Florida, I decided to get a job thinking that I could cope with this thing. I was actually living in a motel at the time. It had an air conditioner in the window. I barely slept the whole time I was in Fort Lauderdale. From the time I left Tucson, Arizona. I had many, many sleepless nights, paralyzed with fear under my blanket until I would just pass out from sheer exhaustion. One night I was in the motel room. It was in the evening around 6 o'clock. I'd just gotten home from work and I hadn't slept in weeks. And I was so exhausted. I knew it was there, but I said, no, I just gotta pretend it's not there and doze off because, you know, when you're in that state of mind, you need your rest. Things get worse when you're not resting properly.
Now he's ignoring it. You know what I
I
mean?
was just dozing off and I heard a popping sound in the room. It was a fairly loud popping sound. I opened my eyes and the curtains were completely engulfed in fire and flames. It was definitely trying to kill me.
Last 5 minutes, flip this story all the heck and back. So far, now we're setting things on fire, right, Katie?
Yep.
I mean, how many groups? I mean, what do you think? At this point, if this is all the information we had, now somebody, of course, with your experience would be like, okay, there's more to this. You know, something's going on. But somebody that doesn't have, 20, 30 years under their belt and just trying to learn. And if all you have is paranormal shows where you see them doing this, and that, and you have the great equipment and everything, of course, you're excited about it. You go in there and you go, man, this is some case. This is right up there with Amityville Horror. This is right up there with this. So things, as soon as you bring fire in, and I agree, that's extremely dangerous.
Right.
But
Call an
what is it?
exorcist.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, exactly. I mean, who wouldn't, right? At this point, experienced paranormal investigators and people with abilities that are listening to their intuition and not just what they see or hear or read on a paper in a preset notion of what's going on, which is again why most mediums and psychics that are going on investigation go, I don't want to know anything about it. That was real big with Sybil Leek and Hans Holzer and Ethel Myers and all of them, the early ones, which is again, I got real lucky, I think. Not that he did everything exactly right or anything like that. What I'm saying is it took me on that path. That exit on the highway is that's where I went and I was like, wow, it's great here. And I had a little bit of foundation before I got into the, wackadoo and crazy on this side. I had a little foundation I could sort it. Not everybody gets that. They get right into the other side and somehow never come out. Right, Katie?
Agreed.
All right. We're almost there. We're almost there. Here we go. I get so excited. I'm a paranutter, I swear.
I got a job in Fort Lauderdale. I was actually living in a motel at the time. And I came home from work and I was just completely exhausted. I needed to rest. This ghost followed me to Florida. Every night it was there with me when I was trying to sleep, just trying to make my hell a little bit more hellish. But I said, no, I just gotta pretend it's not there and doze off. And I heard a popping sound in the room. It was a fairly loud popping sound. I opened my eyes. The curtains were completely engulfed in fire and flames. And there was fire coming from the carpeting up the wall and up the window and the curtains and up to the ceiling. And the room was completely, instantly packed with smoke. I grabbed my things out of the room with the fire still going on. And this is all a matter of seconds. And then I ran right back in and put the fire out. Looking back, had I fallen asleep, who knows what would have happened. It would have certainly been a deep sleep. There's no question that this thing started the fire somehow. This entity was definitely trying to kill me. And at that point, I knew it was time to check out.
Bless his heart. He does have a
I
great
needed to be
attitude, even
alone.
looking back.
I
Like
realized
Hotel California,
that
you can never
I
leave.
needed to focus all of my energy on trying to deal with this and cope with this and to get through it. And that's when I decided to go to buy a tent and a sleeping bag. And,
Look at this.
Go camping.
Now he's in the woods. Have you
quit
ever
my
seen
job.
such a thing progress this fast? It's
And,
amazing.
I drove near Naples, Florida, on the west coast to a state park.
This is all just
And
a
I camped
couple
out in the
weeks.
swamps, which was very hard, very, very hard to do. Well, things changed for me because I had very little money. So my priorities changed, and that
Now he's
was
so down.
eating, making a fire.
Mm.
When I was camping out, it felt like it was always very close.
Can you imagine the
This ghost who constantly,
inner, you know what I mean,
persistently,
turmoil?
dozens and dozens of times would try to attach itself to me.
It's probably not a wise thing to do. Yeah, he does.
And sometimes it succeeded because I was still not fully understanding of how to maintain that barrier of it completely, at least physically off me, if not around me. I knew it was this energy, this entity was in complete control of what was going on. I was just completely lost. This spirit was doing everything in its power to make me go crazy, and it very nearly succeeded. I was feeling very
deprivation, all of it.
suicidal because I was unable to cope. I was completely helpless. I couldn't reach out to anyone. I felt that my family would not understand, or my friends, what I was going through, and I chose not to tell them as a result.
This is why we do what we do, Cisco.
didn't
We
feel
try
like
to
I was an
educate people
outcast
so
from
they
society.
don't feel alone.
Exactly, baby. Exactly. That's why this is so important. And this story is so important because if there was ever a teaching story, or again, I don't want to sit here and say like I'm a teacher. I'm not. I'm just trying to find different ways to pass on something that gives you a visual of things I've gone through and seen. This man right here, he's speaking calmly now, but I imagine while he's going through this is probably the most traumatic
Oh.
time of his life. He started out getting a divorce, goes into a condo he's not really sure of. First, it's fun, like I said, and it's like, wow, this is different. But if you back up 40,000 foot view, and now we've got the chance really to look back at this and see the whole picture. That's what I'm trying to get you guys to do in your situations, or a case that might come up for you, or whatever, because this is the most twisted genre you could imagine to jump in and try to sort. It is really like a paranormal stew, and you have to reverse engineer it and pull everything out and identify it, and then and when you get to the broth, that's a little hard to do. This guy's in the juice, baby.
Yeah.
He really is.
Society, I was cognizant of the fact that I put myself in, I guess, a self-imposed exile, but it wasn't really an exile. It was just what I needed to do to cope and get through what I was getting through. And people, under times of trauma and stress, people do different people do different things to cope, and that's what I did.
Very important part of the story there, guys.
Eventually, I went back to Canada, drove back to Canada, here in Toronto, and I was staying with one of my brothers on his farm. And one night I was lying in bed.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
And I felt this ghost once again trying to do me harm. But this night was different. I had enough and I was tired. And I yelled out, "F you, get the heck out of my life. I'm done, finished." And I was very angry.
Amen.
Just angry.
Intention.
at myself and the situation, and a year of torment, a year of hell with this thing.
Wow.
And I can instantly feel a change of the vibe, the energy around me. I knew that something big had just occurred. And this spirit actually started to communicate to me in a very real way for the first time, in a nice way. I do remember it saying it was an old man that had died, and that it was also apologetic for what it did to me, that it was just,
Wow.
he was very angry and frustrated because he was trapped or stuck in a different realm, in our realm. And I actually ended up having to console it or him in those last moments. And I told it, now it's time for you to go to the light. It was a little bit scared, and I had to coax it or him as nicely and gently as I could that it was doing the right thing by going to the light. And then it went to the light, and it was over. After it left me, my immediate feeling was, wow, I'm free. I felt a little bit of peace, which was very welcome. And I knew when it was over, I knew it was over. I definitely felt more empowered, but the sense of freedom I remember most. It felt like that 900-pound gorilla fell off my back, and it was an amazing feeling. It's a good question to ask why I didn't get angry before, and I just don't know. I think it's probably because I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to let go of the suffering that I was going through. And I think in life, people choose their own suffering. Whether it's unconscious or somewhere between unconscious and conscious, I think we do that. And I guess that's the suffering.
Wow. Well, there you have it. If that wasn't a flip like a roller coaster ride, what do you think?
Right? You know what? It was, how do I say this? A beautiful story, but it's a beautiful example of how easily somebody can be overcome, and how easily malevolent, doesn't have to be demonic, but malevolent or pissed off energy can influence you and create havoc in your world. If I didn't nickel for every time somebody contacted me and said, look, I don't play with the Ouija board. I swear to God, I don't play with the Ouija board, but I've got this entity. And I'll say to them, well, I bought this thing online. It's called an SB7. It's the same thing. It's the same thing you're dealing with.
Yeah.
The bottom
It's
line
permission.
is you are giving it permission to talk.
Anything where you say, use my energy to, that's what you're doing when you're, that's a permission. And without the things we started telling you, without that wall of protection, cracks in your windshield, don't find them. I believe that this man connected somehow to this young man's feelings, what he was going through at first, probably even maybe woke up a dormant or brought him in from the other room or from a car accident down the street, or who knows where. Who's got this rule book, right? So he's connected in, and at first it's all okay, this is fun, and the bag floating in the chandelier moving, whatever, sticking your hand in the glittery stuff. All of that is you're paying attention. Somebody can see me. Okay, I'm going to get help, or I'm going to whatever. Then you got the flip side, Katie, right? Where it's what if, and people don't normally think about this, what if the ghost is actually trying to help this guy in his own way? I notice you're in this. Maybe when you really start to dig in, you find out like maybe the guy was a little worse off than we thought, and he was actually considering suicide or doing something maybe illegal or dirty to make up for lost money, or we don't know. We don't know what's behind the story. I can tell you that I had a little follow-up on this, and he was describing more of what Katie was telling you before, how you have to squish everything into a short time, and so it took him a little longer communicating at the end to get this guy to go off and leave him alone. It ended kind of like he said, ended with that story. There was a little bit more of that communication and work, so it didn't happen in like 10 minutes, but other than that, he said the story was,
I think
it's amazing.
I think everything happens for a reason. I
Mhm.
think that a lot of these things, for a cosmic reason, you can't answer all of them. You don't know, but I
Mhm.
do believe everything happens for that reason. Now,
Mhm.
you were talking about vibration, and if you were to take water on your windshield when it's raining or in the window, and you watch it go down, okay, so it's falling down. But if you were to hit that window or stomp on that
Mm.
puddle, the water comes together, and it's because it's a vibration that brings it together or makes it fall apart. The same thing happens with energy. It's that lighthouse effect, okay? Is there a light if there's no boat to see the light? If there's nobody to see the light? But
Mhm.
when that vibration happens, if let me put it to you this way, if you have a light on the surface and you have a submarine under the water, it doesn't matter if you're close to the lighthouse or not, you're not at the same level.
Mhm.
The same thing occurs with these spiritual entities. It's got to be at the same vibration, okay?
Mhm.
So the fact that they could see each other is what took place, but the fact that the gentleman consciously invited it in started that door of communication.
Mhm.
There are four things that happen in a demonic possession, and I firmly believe demonic as well as malevolent possession. I believe, my personal belief, I may get flack for this, but it's not just demons that possess people.
Correct.
There's step-ins. And
Correct.
so demons are lazy. Not everything is a demon. They're going to go where it's the least resistance.
Mhm.
But malevolent energy does the same thing. And there's oppression, depression, suppression, and possession. Four
Yep.
things. And that's what it started to do to this guy.
Mhm.
It opened up the door of communication, and then it started to make him depressed, or it suppressed him. He
Mhm.
didn't want to go out. He was afraid. He didn't want to talk to his family about it. It made him depressed, where sleep deprivation, not being able to focus, and
Mhm.
then the suppressing everything, all of his feelings, and not wanting to talk about it. And then that possession was taking place. Does that mean that that guy was trying to step into him, or was he
Mhm.
trying to possess his energy field and take
Mhm.
control of it and
Mhm.
control him in the direction he wanted to go? The guy
Mhm.
moved from Canada to Florida, back to
Right.
Canada, all over. It's not always a physical in-person possession, but it's basically like, you're controlling that entity through a
Like a
remote control.
puppeteer. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
And
And so,
also the whole time he's going through all of these high energy emotions, fear, desperation, you name it.
Mhm.
He- the um entity is getting fed and having enough energy to perform these things and getting stronger. And I think at the same time, um, leaning towards he's getting aggravated. He's getting, why are you not talking to me anymore? What I
Mhm.
need help or whatever it's doing because
Mhm.
it's getting caught up in that aggravation. Very much like Patrick Swayze and Ghost.
Mhm.
There's lots of different entities were acting in different ways, just like human beings do. But
Mhm.
some are stuck in this thing and just keep repeating that and don't even know why.
Mhm.
Something interesting I was told a while back was also too that's why a lot of different ghosts get into almost an erratic energy. They're not even themselves anymore. They just
Yep.
become fractured in so many different ways,
Mhm.
and you don't really realize. Now that doesn't mean they can't come back and be pulled back together through
Right.
the right help, and you
Mhm.
get that not just from the person there, but like we said earlier, spirit guides. Our people get, right now our spirit guides are together probably at a bar having cocktails, you know I think that that's what happens because they know that we're going to get together and we're going to say something that we have no idea why we're saying it. And somebody a year from now is going to hear it at the right time and it's going to
Yep.
help. And
Agreed.
that's my prayer. And that's why I get together and that's why I do this crazy stuff and put crazy music videos to lift your vibrations so we could talk about dark stuff. And if you didn't eat the chocolate and you didn't put at least we started out a high vibration because sometimes you got to talk about some things. Listen, yin
Yep.
and yang, baby. I want a warrior that's gone into the darkness and come out and gone, that's what I want. If you never
Yep.
see the darkness, that's okay. We can hang out, but I'm not learning that night. You know what I
No,
mean?
exactly. Yep.
So I love you,
Agreed.
sweetie.
Oh,
I
thank
think the
you.
world of you, and it's
Thank
such a
you.
pleasure having you here. And
Oh,
I
thank you so much.
thank you. Her timelines and our timelines for her to do this, we appreciate it so much.
Oh,
And
thank
I
you. It was
always
a
learn with
pleasure.
you, and I
Yeah.
can't
Me
wait to
too.
see you. I'm
I
so
know.
excited.
July, I got a
Ooh,
book.
baby. Oh gosh, what can we do? Oh gosh, our spirit guides. Oh gosh, they are going to be at the bar hanging out doing stuff because listen, you get like just a certain amount of time, and you know what I'm talking about. It's like, it's not enough time. It's not enough time. I don't want to sit down and eat and have a burger. I'm going to take me to the, whatever. I once talked to Amy Allen. I said, Amy, we got to get in that orphanage. We got to help those kids because those son of a bitches are still holding those kids back. She goes, I know, Cisco. And I'm like, do it. Let's just do it. Don't ask permission. We just go in there. Yeah, we're just here. We're going to buy a couple of postcards and we'll be at, I was like, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it's crazy because it's a big world and people need help, and you help so many. So please tell us about your website and how you help and your readings and things for the people listening, darling.
Yeah, so I do online virtual sessions as well as in-person sessions for the people who are local. You can check me out on Facebook, Katie Turner Sensitive Psychic Medium, or you can go to my website,
Throw that up here, guys.
katieturnerpsychic.com. And my paranormal team, the Canadian Supernatural Research Society. Now, we don't post a lot because most of our stuff is confidential. We do a lot of private cases, and a lot of people don't want their stuff spread. So, we try to limit it. So it's there if you need to contact us. And if you guys are having a rough go or you have any questions, you're more than welcome to research us there. I do a podcast. We have been on a hiatus. The host of the show has been going through some health concerns, but a good friend, Richard Ruland, and myself do a show called Let's Talk About It. It's usually every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Standard Eastern Time.
Oh my goodness, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. But we haven't done it for a couple months now, just because he's been having to get back on his feet. And understandably so, we took a break, but we will be, I think, getting back into it this soon.
When he gets back on, let's do a simulcast. We'll do both shows at the same time and simulcast to each other. Boy, we could talk about some stuff, because
let's talk about
it's been wonderful to have you on these times, and I hope you come back again soon, because there's so many different corridors we can go down here. I mean, we haven't even scratched the surface, but that's one of my number one things, to try to remember that ghosts were people too. And if we look at that and treat it like you're going in there to possibly assist somebody who could be your mom, your dad, your uncle. So it's, we don't help people enough while we're living to the living. And it seems so strange that we have this obsession of trying to understand the dead. Everybody's got their own reasons for that. Mine is that one I didn't get to help when I was, kids and going back, and I was a soldier, but I learned something, Katie, and then we'll get out of here. It's that energy, and it really affected him, and it changed him, and he had moods. And I noticed that as a kid, and he really had like red light coming out of his eyes when he came out. It was really, that's why this story got to me a lot, because I got what that older man was up to. As he got angrier, of course it's going to manifest. Maybe he wasn't trying to kill that guy. Maybe it was just something he could do with to get the guy's attention or whatever. We'll never know. But don't always assume, that something's evil. It might just be a ghost having a bad day, right, Katie?
Absolutely. Agreed.
Just like us. Just like us. Don't mess with me on a Monday before I've had coffee, baby. You know what I mean? You might think you might want to call a priest too. Okay, this has been wonderful. Thank you for spending so much time with us.
Thanks everybody for staying with us.
Oh gosh, it's been so much fun. Go get some rest, and the future is so bright. There's so many things I see coming. The paranormal is really opening up. I agree 100% with you that that pendulum is swinging back as it always does. We watch the generations go by. You youngins listening, I'm telling you, wait, keep the bell bottoms. They're coming back around, just like in the paranormal. Good night, baby.
Bye,
we're going
guys.
out. This is for you, my dear Ted, my friends. Thank you to all my mods here tonight and for all this wonderful stuff. Share this show out. This stuff needs to be known. We're going to have a little skeleton death fairy on the way out. Good night, baby.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Don't let the skeleton death fairy get you. She's cute in her tutu, but she's lethal. Good night, babe.